Since 2021, officers have been following a gang known as BL-800, and they've been instigating crime on the west side of the city, specifically in Wedgewood and South Park apartments.
18 members of the FullyBlooded Felons gang indicted.
Active in Northeast Ohio for over a decade and had a significant presence in Cleveland, particularly in the Cedar Central neighborhood.
The gang started as a branch of another gang known as the Heartless Felons.
After a year-long investigation, 7 members of the Flexico gang, a grand jury indicted the teens and 20-somethings on more than 50 counts, including criminal gang charges. Court records say the men are implicated in 2 shootouts last year.
Police announced indictments against 9 people. Officers say they're linked to the View Tot Lock gang and possibly 14 shootings, including this one back in June.
The feds say one or more of these 17 faces robbed, stole, and up to 13 people.
Even if this is drug dealer to drug dealer, they all matter to us.
The men are accused of 5 and at least 26 attempted, among other very disturbing crimes.
They say it's the gang members that control the streets of the King Lincoln District.
U.S. Attorney Ben Glassman says in total, 13 alleged MS-13 gang members and associates were arrested today. A federal grand jury charged 10 of them with conspiracy to commit extortion, money laundering, and use of a firearm during a crime of violence.
Unit, the ATF and others have worked for 2 years identifying gang members and connecting them to crimes, especially violent crimes, throughout the city.
These crimes have not only endangered the lives, but have contributed to the climate of fear that too many of our neighborhoods have had to endure.
WLWT has reported on at least 2 of these men in the past. Last year, police said Toriano Ross was being shot at when bullets tore through the windows of the Boys and Girls Club. 30 children were inside at the time.
According to police, the Cholo gang members have been indicted in the scheme. Among those who is charged is Don Eames. That is a familiar name.
Ohio, a state known for its industrial roots and cultural diversity, has long faced the complex challenge of gang activity, especially in urban centers like Cleveland, Columbus, Toledo, and Youngstown. Since the 1980s, as economic shifts and community disinvestment took hold, various street gangs emerged, evolving from loosely affiliated neighborhood groups into highly organized, violent enterprises. These gangs have left a lasting mark on communities with a legacy of shootings, drug trafficking, extortion, and territorial warfare. In recent years, Ohio's law enforcement agencies, working in tandem with federal partners, have launched some of the largest and most strategic operations in the state's history to dismantle these criminal networks. From the infamous Short North Posi in Columbus to the multi-county operations of the Cholo gang in Toledo and the transnational threats posed by MS-13, these efforts represent a turning point in Ohio's decades-long war against organized street violence.
Since 2021, officers have been following a gang known as BL-800, and they've been instigating crime on the west side of the city, specifically in Wedgewood and South Park apartments.
They weren't the traditional drug dealer on the corner and operating a trap house street gang. In fact, this gang was so violent that other drug dealers wouldn't even deal with them.
Klaus says the group relied on theft.
They mount up in cars full of guys, and there'll be several cars at a time, and they go to Easton, Tuttle, Polaris, all the different parking lots all around Columbus, and they just go through like a swarm of locusts and track car handles, car handles, car handles.
Detectives say they've arrested 21 different members and charged them with gang-related crimes.
In an aggressive effort to curb gang violence in Columbus, Ohio, law enforcement officials have made major strides against the BL-800 gang, also known as Bantu Life 800. Originating from the 800 block of Wedgewood Drive, the gang primarily operated in the Wedgewood and South Park apartment complexes on the city's west side. Composed mostly of individuals aged 14 to 25, BL-800 has been linked to theft, drug trafficking, armed robbery, and a series of violent crimes. Authorities launched a multi-agency investigation into the gang's activities, culminating in the arrests and indictments of at least 21 individuals by early 2024. The gang's control over its territory was maintained through threats and intimidation, often preventing witnesses from coming forward. One of the most high-profile cases involved the August 2022 fatal shooting of 32-year-old Miguel Arriola, who met his demise in a drive by shooting linked to gang retaliation.
2 men will now be in prison for at least the next 15 years. The prosecutor's office says in August of 2022, the men shot a man inside his vehicle on Wicklow Road in the Hilltop. Both suspects are a part of the BL-800 gang, which terrorized the Wedgewood apartment complex for years.
2 gang members, Hussein Bilal and Abdulkader Shindi Ahmed, later pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter and were sentenced to 15 to 20 years in prison. Another key figure, Bush Salat, was sentenced to 18 to 21 years after pleading guilty to multiple crimes, including participating in a criminal gang robbery and 2 separate shootings that occurred in early 2023.
Perkins Township police say 6 members of a gang have been connected to a series of home and business break-ins in Lucas, Wood, and Erie counties. According to police, the Cholo gang members have been indicted in the scheme. Among those who is charged is Don Eames. That is a familiar name because he is also one of the people charged with and kidnappings of Toledo teens Kamarian Wilder and Kashawn
In April
Pittman.
2023, authorities in Northwest Ohio announced the indictment of 6 individuals believed to be part of the Cholo gang, a Toledo-based criminal network accused of carrying out a wave of thefts and violent crimes spanning multiple counties. The group faces a wide range of charges, including engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity, participating in a criminal gang, burglary, breaking and entering, and safe cracking. The suspects, Don Eames, Joshua Schultz, Tyler Lorenzen, Isiah Yulis, Caleb Rowell, and Willie Roberts, allegedly orchestrated a series of smash and grab burglaries and auto thefts. One of the most notable incidents occurred in July 2022, when members of the crew traveled to Erie County and committed several break-ins, targeting both commercial businesses and private residences in Huron. Among the stolen items were approximately $16,000 worth of merchandise from Dick's Sporting Goods, along with evidence of forced entry and safe cracking at Huron Market. Investigators were able to track the suspects to a hotel in Perrysburg, where they recovered stolen vehicles and much of the stolen property. Further investigation revealed the Cholo gang was already under surveillance by law enforcement agencies in Wood and Lucas counties for similar crimes, suggesting a broader criminal operation spanning several jurisdictions. In terms of convictions, Joshua Schultz, 20, received a 7 to 10.5-year prison sentence for his role in the Erie County thefts. Another suspect, Don Eames, 21, is facing separate and far more serious charges in Toledo, including kidnapping and deletion related to the 2022 deaths of local teens Kashawn Pittman and Kamarian Wilder.
Right now, 16 violent criminals are facing charges as part of a years-long investigation. CPD's gang unit arrested members of the Livingston-Lonsdale blood gang, and police say they're responsible for trafficking drugs near schools and violent crimes.
We got one for your arrest, bub.
This is body-worn camera video of arrests of what police call violent Livingston-Lonsdale blood gang members earlier this month.
Born and raised out here, and my parents still live out here.
Chandler Tennant saw a poster CPD put up of the suspects this afternoon explaining how many charges each are facing.
I was kind of shocked because I'm just like, I grew up with him, and we used to play together, and, you know, we used to play curveball and basketball together. I didn't even know, you know, they were doing that type of stuff, and it kind of shocked me.
In November 2024, the Columbus Division of Police announced the successful conclusion of a major 2-year investigation, Operation Pocket Aces, which targeted the Livingston and Lonsdale Bloods, a violent subset of the National Bloods gang operating within Columbus, Ohio. The operation resulted in the indictment of 16 individuals on a sweeping 149 felony charges, ranging from drug trafficking and weapons offenses to attempted murder and felonious assault. Authorities uncovered an expansive drug distribution network operated by the gang, involving trafficking. Many of these transactions were conducted near schools, intensifying the legal consequences and further endangering local communities. During the course of the investigation, police executed more than 20 search warrants, seizing 56 firearms, including 2 modified to fire as fully automatic weapons, along with over $156,000 in cash and large quantities of illicit narcotics. Assistant Chief Lashana Potts described the Livingston and Lonsdale Bloods as one of the most dangerous and disruptive criminal organizations in our community. She emphasized that the success of Operation Pocket Aces reflects the department's unwavering commitment to combating organized gang violence and restoring public safety.
Violent and dangerous Columbus Crips gang members accused of terrorizing an entire neighborhood are off the streets. U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions made the announcement in Columbus today.
15 of the alleged gang members are locked up tonight, but these 4 men police continue to look for: Eric Henderson Jr., Michael Henderson, Thomas Seals, and DeJuan Robinson.
Of the 4 alleged Crip gang members who were named in a major indictment yesterday but had not been arrested are in custody tonight. Columbus police say they arrested Michael Henderson and DeJuan Robinson, then turned himself in. They are still looking for Eric Henderson Jr. and Thomas Seals, the 4 among 19 indicted in an alleged racketeering conspiracy that the Department of Justice says includes 5. The DOJ says most of the people in that indictment lived in the King Lincoln district.
Despite it all, this community hopes things will get better, especially after Columbus police removed the alleged gang members off the streets. The arrest hit too close to home for Al Edmondson.
I started recognizing some of the young men that came to this barbershop that were involved.
Edmondson's barbershop, a cut above the rest, has been on North 20th Street for more than 20 years. This father tells him he's seen it all out here, thinks he knows the root of the problem.
Since these kids grow up in this neighborhood, and a lot of them don't have fathers.
There were gunshots.
She says she had just spoken to the victim as 20-year-old William Moore walked along the sidewalk. But in a matter of seconds, violence broke through the morning silence, sending a swarm of police into this near North Side Columbus neighborhood.
Once I heard the gunshots go off, I jumped out my car and ran into the house and woke up my boyfriend and told him to come outside. I just heard someone get shot.
Police say witnesses told them they heard 4 to 5 shots. Although shot in the upper part of his body, investigators say Moore somehow managed to stagger more than a block away to a nearby Wheatland food store at Mount Vernon and Graham. Jisan Arwahnan was there working.
This guy, he just come in the store and he said to me, "Please help me, I got shot."
The young man was taken to Grant Medical Center in critical, but doctors weren't able to save him. And as police continue their investigation, Charlotta Atwell and her neighbors watch and wonder when it will all end.
The deletion of William Moore, March 15, 2013. Moore's death was one of several tied to the gang's internal power struggles and retaliation against rivals.
New tonight, the search is on for a gunman who police say killed 1 man and injured another at a gas station on the corner of Lexington and 5th Avenues.
Police have identified him as 26-year-old Marvin Ector. And a detective on the scene told me that that second victim, 31-year-old Darnell Gammon, was shot once and is now recovering here at Grant Medical Center. This all happened earlier this evening at a Sunoco gas station at the intersection of East 5th and Lexington Avenues. Columbus police say it's unclear what triggered that shooting, but when they arrived on the scene, they found Marvin Ector in the front seat of a car. The engine was still running and the back window of the car was shattered. Investigators say they're looking for a green truck that was seen fleeing the area shortly after the shooting. The victim's family members showed up at the scene clearly distraught.
Son's accused killer face a judge. Well, this heart-wrenching story all started Friday at the Express Mart on East 5th Avenue near Peters Avenue. That's where police say 18-year-old Marstarius Grace shot into a parked car, hitting 3 people, including 7-year-old Deontay Fisher, who later died from his wounds.
I can tell you that that $2 million, that's exactly what the judge set, and the victim's mother in this case doesn't believe he'll be able to post it. Martarius Grace walking into that courtroom this morning, learning he would have that $2 million bond, expected now back in court March 14th. The prosecutors requesting a high bond in this case, saying that the incident may have been fueled by an ongoing rival between 2 gangs, and stated that retaliation could be likely from both sides. All of this from that fatal shooting Friday in the 900 block of East 5th Avenue. 7-year-old Deontay Fisher was shot in died. 3 others inside, including 2 more children, were also shot.
Under very heavy security, Grace stood, said nothing, but smiled at the jurors as they were each asked about their guilty verdicts.
We, the jury, further find the defendant did commit the offense
Investigators and gang members say Grace is a member of the Atchison Crips gangsters, leading to 20 deputies and plainclothes officers in the courtroom for the verdict.
The Trevitt and Atchison Crips, widely known as the TNA Crips, were a violent street gang based in the King, Lincoln district of Columbus, Ohio. Named after the two streets that define their territory, the gang established a reputation for fear, violence, and control throughout the east side of the city. Between 2010 and 2018, the TNA Crips were involved in a series of brutal crimes, culminating in a sweeping federal indictment that would go down as one of the largest gang crackdowns in Ohio's modern history. In September 2018, a federal grand jury indicted 19 alleged members of the gang on racketeering conspiracy charges. The indictment outlined a disturbing picture of organized violence, linking the gang to 5 deletions, over 24 attempted deletions, and an expansive drug trafficking network. Authorities said the TNA Crips distributed drugs not only in Columbus, but in outlying cities such as Portsmouth and Chillicothe, and even as far as Huntington, West Virginia. The proceeds from drug sales were used to fund additional crimes, including the purchase of firearms and the expansion of the gang's influence. Among the crimes detailed in the indictment were several high-profile deletions. On July 1, 2012, Frankie Tension was shot and met his demise near 431 Ellison Street. On March 15, 2013, William Moore, a known member of rival gang Poindexter Thug Life Bloods, was fatally gunned down on Mount Vernon Avenue. Later that year, on December 23, Marvin Ector met his demise on East 5th Avenue. In another targeted deletion, Quincy Story was shot on January 24, 2015, on South James Road, allegedly for showing disrespect toward a deceased member of the TNA Crips' one gang subset. Perhaps the most heartbreaking moment came on March 4, 2016, when 7-year-old Dewani Fisher was tragically caught in the crossfire during a gang-related shootout. His death, which rocked the Columbus community, became a powerful symbol of the innocent lives destroyed by gang violence. By 2021, all 19 individuals named in the indictment had been convicted. Notable sentences included a 30-year term for Charles Carson for his role in the deletion of Quincy Story, 24 years for Brandon Martin for the deletion of William Moore, and 18 years for Terrell Scott Hansard for his involvement in the shooting where Dewani Fisher met his demise. Another key figure, Steve Henderson Jr., received 20 years for a series of violent crimes, including drive-by shootings targeting rival gangs.
U.S. Attorney Ben Glassman says in total, 13 alleged MS-13 gang members and associates were arrested today. A federal grand jury charged 10 of them with conspiracy to commit extortion, money laundering, and use of a firearm during a crime of violence. 2 of those men are still on the loose, Jose Manuel Romero Parada and Nelson Alexander Flores. 5 others were arrested and charged in criminal complaints with federal immigration-related crimes.
The enforcement action today is the product of an investigation that's been going on for well over a year, year and a half.
Glassman says the indictment reaches as far back as 2010, but says the MS-13 Columbus clique could have been here in central Ohio before then.
Some members lived in Columbus and have been here for a long time, and some have lived in Columbus and Indianapolis, one in Dayton, so varying different lengths of time they've been resident in these areas.
In August 2017, a major federal crackdown led to the arrest of 13 alleged members and associates of the Columbus clique of MS-13, a violent transnational criminal gang. The coordinated law enforcement operation took place across central Ohio and parts of Indiana and followed a federal grand jury indictment charging 10 individuals with conspiracy to commit extortion, money laundering, and firearms offenses related to violent crimes. An additional 5 suspects were charged with federal immigration violations. MS-13, or La Mara Salvatrucha, is a gang with deep roots in Central America, primarily El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. It has grown into a vast criminal network with operations throughout the United States. In 2012, the U.S. government officially designated MS-13 a transnational criminal organization, making it the first street gang to receive that classification due to its violent tactics, international reach, and sophisticated operations. According to the indictment, the Columbus clique of MS-13 used threats, intimidation, and violence to extort money from individuals within their communities. These illicit proceeds were then laundered and transferred to gang leaders in El Salvador and other locations to fund criminal operations. The money helped purchase weapons, narcotics, and cell phones, and provided financial support to imprisoned members and the families of deceased gang affiliates. In February 2018, federal authorities expanded the scope of the case. A second superseding indictment brought charges against 23 individuals, accusing them of racketeering conspiracy that included 5 deletions, attempted deletion, extortion, and drug trafficking. Prosecutors detailed a series of brutal crimes committed between 2006 and 2016, including the targeted deletions of suspected informants and rival gang members. By July 2021, authorities had secured convictions against 22 of the defendants, including 9 who were each sentenced to a minimum of 30 years in prison for committing deletions on behalf of MS-13. In total, the convictions accounted for 8 separate deletions, many involving victims who were either believed to be working with law enforcement or affiliated with opposing gangs.
We have some breaking developments on a major crime bust right here in Cleveland. A violent gang has been brought down after a massive operation by local, state, and federal law enforcement.
Yeah, we're talking RICO, racketeering charges that involve sexual assault, kidnapping, and drug distribution. Authorities say it originated and happened right here in Cleveland's Cedars Central neighborhood. They even say drugs were sold right here in this very vicinity, like an open-air market. They also told us that the alleged kingpin of this gang called himself the Godfather. 18 members of the FullyBlooded Felons gang indicted.
Active in Northeast Ohio for over a decade and had a significant presence in Cleveland, particularly in the Cedar Central neighborhood.
The gang started as a branch of another gang known as the Heartless Felons. Leading this reign of terror, the alleged kingpin, Raven Mullins, who officials say referred to himself as the Godfather. He allegedly established a strict hierarchy within the gang, complete with rules, fines, and brutal punishments for anyone who disobeyed.
FBF held meetings to discuss gang business and were required to abide by Amaretta, meaning a code of silence.
The criminal enterprise even extended into the Ohio prison system, where they attempted to smuggle
drug-soaked paper and other contraband,
stash houses, torture, guns, and drugs. This organized crime ring has been operating right under our noses.
In a sweeping federal operation targeting organized gang activity, 18 individuals alleged to be members of the FullyBlooded Felon Street gang have been indicted in Cleveland, Ohio. Active primarily on the city's east side since 2012, the FullyBlooded Felons now faces a second superseding indictment that outlines a wide range of serious charges, including racketeering conspiracy, deletion, kidnapping, assault, drug trafficking, and firearms violations. The charges stem from a 2-year investigation led by federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies and were unsealed in late 2024. According to prosecutors, the FullyBlooded Felons operated as a hierarchical criminal enterprise under the direction of its founder, Raven Mullins, allegedly known within the group as the Godfather. Mullins and his commissioners are accused of overseeing violent enforcement tactics, internal discipline, and revenue-generating activities through narcotic sales and territorial control. The gang's influence reportedly extended beyond Cleveland into cities like Akron and Youngstown, as well as the Ohio correctional system. One of the most alarming events detailed in the indictment involves a September 2023 deletion on Cleveland's west side. Authorities allege Mullins and 2 other members, Henry Burchett and James Clemens, carried out a fatal shooting, then fled in a stolen vehicle that was later set on fire to conceal evidence. In a separate case from June 2022, Mullins and several associates were charged with the abduction of a woman suspected of cooperating with law enforcement. The woman was allegedly held captive for 6 days, during which she endured threats and repeated sexual assault. The FullyBlooded Felons' drug operations were extensive and brazen. Prosecutors say the gang ran multiple open-air drug markets throughout the Cedar Central neighborhood, trafficking large amounts of drugs. Evidence also pointed to attempts by gang associates to smuggle narcotics into jail facilities, with some individuals allegedly positioned in or seeking employment with law enforcement and corrections. The Elaine Crip family, a prominent street gang based in Columbus, Ohio, became the target of a major federal investigation in 2018 that culminated in the indictment of 8 members. These individuals were charged with trafficking drugs throughout central Ohio and into parts of West Virginia. The case was part of a larger federal initiative aimed at dismantling regional drug distribution networks with ties to violent street gangs. In addition to drug-related offenses, the Elaine Crip family has been linked to numerous violent crimes tied to ongoing gang feuds. One notable example came in 2012 when a member of the rival Woodcrest Bloods was convicted in connection with a drive-by shooting that targeted a member of the Elaine Crips. The attack was reportedly part of a larger pattern of retaliatory violence between the two gangs. Authorities have identified the Elaine Gangster Crips as one of the larger and more active gangs in the Columbus area, with an estimated 30 to 40 members operating across multiple neighborhoods. A 2021 report highlighted their involvement in a substantial number of the city's deletions, underscoring their role in the broader issue of gang-related violence.
The neighborhood is still on edge tonight, even after Cleveland police bring down a gang. Investigators showing us today pictures of the alleged View Tot Lock gang members. They are all arrested, and the dozens of guns they confiscated you saw a few minutes ago.
Officers say they're linked to the View Tot Lock gang and possibly 14 shootings, including this one back in June.
We just trying to make it from day to day.
Authorities have announced sweeping indictments against 9 alleged members of the View Tot Lock gang, a Cleveland-based street crew linked to a recent surge of violent crimes, including 3 deletions and 14 shootings over a 3-month span. According to the indictment, the View Tot Lock gang, also known as L2L or NFL, is a subset of the Heartless Felons, one of Cleveland's most dangerous and well-known criminal organizations. Active since at least 2012, the gang is based around East 110th Street and Lakeview Road, but has extended its reach into neighboring suburbs. Members allegedly committed a wide array of violent offenses between June 2014 and August 2015. The indictment links the gang to several high-profile crimes, including a July drive by shooting on Thornhill Drive near Forest Hills Park that left 7 people wounded. A van believed to be used in the attack was later found abandoned in East Cleveland, though no formal charges have been filed in that case. In another incident, Octavius Hudson is accused of committing a fatal shooting at a Warrensville Heights hotel in July. Prosecutors say Hudson met an 18-year-old woman online, had sex with her, and then attempted to rob her. When another woman in the room tried to intervene, he allegedly shot her in the chest. Hudson and a co-conspirator fled in a car stolen from East Cleveland.
Here tonight, a historic set of indictments against suspected members of the Short North Posse. For the first time, nearly a dozen gang members are eligible for the death penalty.
Police, prosecutors, and federal agents voiced their concerns about witness intimidation. They say the people who saw something or knew something about this case have been threatened, beaten, and even.
The feds say they went by names like the Cutthroat Committee and Homicide Squad.
A lot of these homicides were planned.
And they were the ones who enforced gang laws governed by the Short North Posse. For 7 years, between 2005 and 2012, the feds say one or more of these 17 faces robbed, stole, and up to 13 people.
Even if this is drug dealer to drug dealer, they all matter to us.
And while the feds say members of this crew were hired, other drug dealers, rival gang members, or others with lots of cash and guns, they were also told to off people who they knew. One victim, Crystal Fife, dated alleged ringleader Brandon Ledbetter. The indictment claims he shot and killed her in 2011 so she wouldn't talk to the cops.
The Short North Posse, once one of the most feared and entrenched street gangs in Columbus, Ohio, was brought to its knees through a sweeping federal investigation that led to numerous indictments and convictions between 2014 and 2017. Operating primarily in the Short North and Wineland Park neighborhoods, the gang was responsible for a broad range of violent and illicit activities. Their criminal enterprise included drug trafficking, armed robberies, extortion, illegal firearms possession, and a series of homicides that left a deep scar on the community. In October 2014, a federal grand jury handed down an expansive indictment charging 20 individuals linked to the Short North Posi under the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. The charges connected the gang to 14 previously unsolved deletions, numerous attempted deletions, and a range of offenses related to narcotics and weapons trafficking. The indictment outlined a highly structured organization that operated through violent subgroups like the Cutthroat Committee and the Homicide Squad, factions specifically created to enforce the gang's rule through targeted deletions and intimidation. Among those convicted, Robert B. Ledbetter, known as Killer B, was sentenced to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. He was found guilty of multiple deletions, including the highly publicized murders of Alan Johnson and Crystal Fife. Another prominent member, Christopher A. Harris, also known as O-Dog, received a life sentence for his role in several gang-related deletions. Additional figures, such as Rashad A. Liston Buckwheat and Deount Ushery Frog, also received life terms for their participation in the gang's violent operations. Altogether, 6 members of the Short North Posse were convicted at trial, while 13 others accepted plea deals. 1 individual died before sentencing. The sentences ranged from 7 years to life imprisonment, highlighting the severity of the gang's crimes and the determination of prosecutors to seek maximum accountability.
The Crips are one of the largest street gangs in the country, and prosecutors now say members have been doing business in Butler County. WLW2 News Host Karen Johnson joins us live now with what's being done to take down this gang operating in our area. Karen.
And Cherie, 8 suspected Crips were just indicted here in Butler County, charged with participating in a criminal gang. Prosecutor Mike Moser says these men conducted their business on and around Sycamore Street in Hamilton. Indicted were Toriano Ross Jr., Eric Ross, Embry Ross, Nathaniel Riggins, Jordan Jones, Brian Jones, Corbin Jenner, and Henry Lee Williams Jr. Moser says they've been behind some of the violence and drug dealing. WLWT has reported on at least 2 of these men in the past. Last year, police said Toriano Ross was being shot at when bullets tore through the windows of the Boys and Girls Club. 30 children were inside at the time. In Labor Day weekend of 2013, both Toriano and Eric Ross were shot multiple times outside of an apartment complex on Chestnut Street.
In a decisive move against gang violence, Butler County law enforcement officials have announced the indictment of 8 suspected members of the Crips Street Gang, signaling a major step in efforts to dismantle organized criminal activity in Hamilton, Ohio. The charges, centered around participation in a criminal gang, are the result of a collaborative investigation between the Butler County Prosecutor's Office and the Hamilton Police Department. Prosecutors allege that the group operated primarily in and around Sycamore Street, an area that has seen ongoing issues with violence and drug trafficking. Prosecutor Mike G. Moser described the suspects as highly dangerous, stating they were responsible for distributing drugs and contributing to escalating violence in the community. They are truly violent, G. Moser said. They fight among themselves and with rivals, but their ultimate goal is to control territory and maintain a marketplace for their drugs and other criminal enterprises. They're not afraid to harm anyone who stands in their way. Among the most alarming incidents linked to this group was a shooting involving Toriano Ross, in which bullets struck the Boys and Girls Club of Hamilton, while 30 children were inside. Both Toriano and his cousin Eric Ross were also shot multiple times outside a Chestnut Street apartment complex during Labor Day weekend in 2013, an incident highlighting the gang's volatility and disregard for public safety. While specific details of the charges remain sealed, authorities confirmed that 6 of the 8 suspects are already serving prison sentences for unrelated offenses.
Today, a Mahoning County judge sentenced the man investigators say was the leader of Youngstown's Vic Boys to 10 years in prison. Darrell Mason Jr. pleaded guilty to 13 felony charges, including drug trafficking.
Investigators say Mason led Youngstown's Vic Boys gang. Back in 2013, a grand jury indicted him along with 10 other adults and 3 juveniles on drug and gang charges.
This was a long investigation into these guys. There was quite a few of them that we were able to apprehend and prosecute.
Since the indictments of the Vic Boys, Mahoning County Assistant Prosecutor Marty Desmond says his office has received positive phone calls from residents and even the security department of Victory Estates on Youngstown's east side, where the members lived.
In August 2013, a coordinated law enforcement operation led to the indictment of 13 individuals linked to the Vic Boys, a violent street gang based in the Victory Estates neighborhood of Youngstown, Ohio. The indictments were the result of a year-long investigation that focused on dismantling the gang's drug trafficking operations and curbing its involvement in weapons-related crimes. The Vic Boys had long been associated with drug distribution, as well as violent acts that destabilized the community.
More than 50 charges and a street gang dismantled, all the result of Operation Legend, a more than year-long effort in Cuyahoga County.
But prosecutors say that didn't stop members of Flexico.
There are a couple incidents in which we know for a fact those triggers were pulled. Shootings that happened during broad daylight, 2 of the incidents, broad daylight shootings, residential areas in which anybody can be the ultimate target of one of those bullets.
After a year-long investigation, 7 members of the Flexico gang are in custody, one of which was booked late this afternoon. One more member remains at large, but an arrest warrant has been issued. A grand jury indicted the teens and 20-somethings on more than 50 counts, including criminal gang charges.
In March 2021, a Cuyahoga County grand jury indicted 8 individuals suspected of being members of the Flexico gang, a group operating primarily on Cleveland's west side. The indictment encompassed over 50 felony charges, including participating in a criminal gang, felonious assault, improperly discharging firearms into habitation, drug trafficking, and weapons offenses. The Flexico gang was linked to multiple violent incidents between December 2019 and March 2021. Notably, on April 24, 2020, members were involved in a shootout near West 31st Street and Clark Avenue, during which numerous shots were fired, striking several residences occupied by children. Another incident occurred on November 12, 2020, near West 6th Street and Marquardt Avenue, where gunfire from gang members struck a nearby residence. In addition to these shootings, the gang was implicated in various other criminal activities, including illegal possession of firearms, fleeing from law enforcement, and trafficking narcotics.
The indictment in this case alleges that the Thug Rider Motorcycle Club operated a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in acts of violence.
Last night, 14 members of the Thug Riders Motorcycle Club were arrested in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and Arizona based on various criminal allegations. The larger organization has been in place since 2003, but agents say the Dayton chapter was founded in 2019 by this man, Juan Robles. They say this chapter has been on their radar for years as Robles rose through the ranks of power within the club. Police hope that his arrest will send a message to the larger international organization.
Juan Robles was instrumental in the establishment of this chapter and rose to a significant level of leadership.
Agents say that these crimes date all the way back to May of 2021 and include blowing up the vehicle of a former club member in Huber Heights, a man during a shootout in Harrison Township, and physically assaulting members of another motorcycle gang in London, Ohio. With the larger organization having over 20 years of history, federal law enforcement believes that there could be a larger history of violence as well.
In June 2024, a federal grand jury indicted 14 members of the Thug Riders Motorcycle Club, a group accused of operating as a violent criminal enterprise across Ohio and surrounding states. The charges, which include racketeering, deletion, attempted deletion, arson, extortion, assault, and identity fraud, describe a highly organized gang responsible for a wave of brutal crimes over several years. The Thug Riders established their Dayton chapter in late 2019, quickly drawing the attention of law enforcement due to their involvement in organized criminal activity. One of the earliest and most notorious incidents occurred in May 2021, when members allegedly planted and detonated an explosive device inside a former member's vehicle in Huber Heights, a retaliatory attack that marked the beginning of a violent escalation. By September 2021, the violence had turned deadly. A shootout in Harrison Township left one man dead, believed to be affiliated with a rival motorcycle gang. The violence continued in April 2023, when members allegedly fired nearly 200 rounds into a rival gang's clubhouse in Lexington, Kentucky. Another violent confrontation followed in June 2023 when a man's leg was broken during a barroom assault at Toby's Tavern in Dayton. In March 2024, yet another shootout erupted at a rival gang's clubhouse in Springfield, Ohio, adding to the growing list of violent encounters linked to the gang. Federal prosecutors outlined the Thug Riders' leadership structure, revealing a militaristic hierarchy within the organization. Juan Robles, known as Juan the Man, was identified as the group's Midwest regional boss. Joey Marshall, also known as King Joe or Diesel, served as the regional sergeant-at-arms, while Jared Peters, nicknamed Savage, presided over the Dayton chapter as its president. Other key figures included Brandon Fisher Roadrunner, who served as sergeant-at-arms, and John Smith Chaos, who acted as the chapter's enforcer. A breakthrough in the case came in February 2025 when the Thug Riders member Michael Henry, also known as Brutal, pleaded guilty to multiple federal charges, including conspiracy to engage in racketeering and committing violent crimes in aid of racketeering. Legal proceedings are continuing, with a joint status report due by April 8, 2025. The report is expected to propose trial dates and timelines for pretrial motions, hearings, and the trial itself. The case has drawn national attention as one of the largest federal efforts to dismantle an outlaw motorcycle gang in Ohio's recent history. The coordinated indictments and convictions detailed in these cases reflect more than just legal victories. They mark a concerted statewide effort to restore hope and stability in neighborhoods once plagued by violence. Through federal RICO statutes, targeted sting operations, and interagency collaboration, Ohio is sending a clear message: gang violence will not be tolerated. Yet, law enforcement leaders are quick to point out that indictments alone are not enough. True community safety depends on sustained investment in prevention, rehabilitation, and neighborhood revitalization. Programs aimed at youth engagement, mental health services, and job training must complement police work to disrupt the cycle of crime and incarceration. As Ohio continues to confront the ripple effects of gang activity, its evolving strategies, rooted in justice, accountability, and community collaboration, offer a blueprint for other states grappling with similar challenges. These cases not only showcase the strength of Ohio's criminal justice system, but also the resilience of its communities determined to reclaim peace, safety, and a better future for the next generation.